fantastic contraption once you figure out how to make it work. It's amazing that you have to know that the camera has to be upright and not sideways, or it can make a big difference and not even be able to show the video. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is say thank you to so many people that have participated in making sure today happens. This is not something that you achieve all on your own. This is something that involves a whole community of people. And we have a number of individuals around the country that I have worked with in my previous job and have worked with over a lifetime, and they have been contributing. You may not realize we've been working on this for the last 3+ years, but this has been a long-term project. And so I want to say thank you to all of you who are online today and are watching and are supporting. We are super grateful. I also want to say thank you to all the volunteers that came today. This is hot, this is muggy, and we were building stages and testing out equipment. I mean, this is the first time we've used the sound system, so many, many thank yous to everybody that supported here on site. And then last but not least, of course, I want to say thank you to all the speakers that are going to stand up with us today. This is amazing. You know, we don't normally get so many people from different groups that come together. And just so everybody knows, this is not just one political party. This is the Democrats and Republicans. We have independent thinkers. We have third-party supporters. And we have people who hate politics altogether that are here tonight. And that might be all of us at times, of course, right? But I am truly grateful to everybody who has participated in this journey. I'd like to call out Technoscience, who did our amazing wrap over here that we will be signing a little bit later. And Melrose, where are you? There she is. She's been working on our website. We're getting more and more changes as we go. So thank you so much. And I see my dad out there for any of you who watch us on Facebook. You might not know, but I had a couple folks say they were watching us. They filmed it. They listened and it worked. So it's pretty good. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. J.J. Walcott. I am a scientist. I am an innovator. I am a mama. And for the last several years, I have been on the inside of government trying to figure out what in the world is going on and what is it that we can do about it. I have served as the Director of Innovation for an education and training program set in the Pentagon. I have been a U.S. delegate to NATO and Partnership for Peace. I've worked with all 15 departments and all the agencies looking for innovation and great ideas all across the executive branch. Why? Well, because I applied for this job, and I didn't really even know what the job was, but I knew I needed to get into government and figure things out and better understand. And when I got into that interview, they said, well, we're looking for a psychologist who can look for patterns of behaviors across the government and make recommendations for change. I said, well, doesn't somebody do that every 4 to 8 years anyway? I mean, what in the world am I going to come up with that someone hasn't already said? But okay, fair enough. And they said, but there's a second thing we want you to do. When you finish your tour, we want you to come out and share everything you learn with the American people. Well, that's when I really said, well, what in the world? How do I do that? And they said, well, JJ, that's your job to figure out. I said, okay, all righty then. So the first thing that we did was we went around and talked to people all over the departments. A lot of people don't realize there are 2.4 million people that work in the executive branch. We often only hear from Congress or the administration, but there's millions of people that work. And in DOD, there's another 2.1 million. So 4.5 million folks working, and we don't hear from most of them because ethically we can't. But I was able to talk to so many of them. And what we were able to produce was a book that said, here is the next president's management agenda. This is how you change communication on the inside, and this is how you build trust with the American people on the outside. And so we put all that together and submitted it, and it comes with its own controversy, but it is publicly available, and that is super exciting and very rare as well. The second thing we did is we worked on a book that is essentially a national education strategy. And in this one, what we did is we didn't just talk on the inside, we talked to all the community leaders on the outside of government. Why is that important? Because you shouldn't be making an education program without talking to K-12 teachers, and you need to talk to the union, and then you need to talk to researchers and to the folks who are nonprofits and businesses, Department of Labor, Department of Defense, Department of Education. Everybody has to be at the table. But getting all those people to agree is a little bit interesting and very tricky. So it was a new experience to be able to put all of that together. But I'm glad to say we were successful and getting it out to the public. And that is very exciting. And now that will be executed. So now it's time for me to fulfill the second promise that I made, which is to bring everything I learned to the American people. And that's what we're starting today. Today is the day that I begin that promise. And it is to go around the country and share not just with everybody here and everybody online, but in all 50 states. Give a voice to all those workers who, I will tell you, are tremendous. We may hear all the time that government does this or government doesn't do that, but people work their tails off. And I was super impressed, and I want to be able to give them a voice. So the first thing that I learned was we need a mission. If you look around, it doesn't take a PhD in psychology to recognize we are fighting like crazy these days. And the one way that we deal with that in military is to have a mission goal. So we're going to start with that, and that's where the idea of the Ready Nation comes from. A ready nation is a nation that is ready for the challenges that we know are coming in the future. The way that you define that is to figure out what are those challenges and what are the key areas that we need to focus on. Then the second step is to figure out what are your assets? Where is brilliance located? Who has a great idea that we haven't yet tapped? How do we bring those together? That is exactly what we did on the inside of government. And then the last thing you have to do is execute that plan. And there are three ways you can execute plans when you're dealing in government. You can do it in a position of power when you get to make all the decisions. You can do it as an inspiration, or you can do it as a way of influencing how decisions are being made. So it is not the case that you always have to be the decision maker. There is a lot of room to impact those decision makers at various levels. So to break that down, what very precisely are we going to be doing on this tour? Well, the first was to start with those challenges, and these are the ones that we identified on the inside. The first is digitization. You can love technology, you can hate technology, it doesn't matter, it's here to stay. So we have two choices. We can enter the digital age safely and securely, and we're going to talk about that today, or we can allow it to happen to us. Now I'm rooting for the former, but believe me, China and Russia are hoping that we're fighting with each other too much to notice and allowing that to happen to us. They will find their way in. The second issue that we run into is automation. And as jobs are changed, some will be lost, some will be gained, but we have to be ready. It means we need to have different skills than we're teaching today. And it means we need lifelong learners, not just K-12 and not just at the collegiate level. And then the last thing we have to be concerned about is globalization. I know it's a hot topic, not everybody loves it, but the train has left the station on this point, because if any of you have ever bought anything today on your phone, you probably paid for something out of the country, at least some component of it. Or if you made a complaint today, you probably talked to somebody who is either employed outside the U.S. or is connected to a company outside the U.S. So the reality is this is here, and we need our workers to not just be locally competitive, but also to be globally competitive. And then we have those areas to focus on. One of the things we say in business, but I tell you, we say in government all the time. If there are too many priorities, there are no priorities. So we have to be clear, what are the top things we're going to focus on? And they're not political, they're for our nation. They are must-haves. So the first is the environment, because without the earth, nothing else matters. The second is going to be healthcare, because when we're healthy, we're ready for work, we're ready for school, we're ready for life. The third is defense, because defense is changing substantially as we go into cyberspace, and we go into something called non-co-located warfare. That means your enemy is not in the same space as you. You're not physically with them. So the change is going to be intellectual and psychological warfare. It means we need lots of different types of people in military going forward. The fourth is going to be education. Because as we said, the world is changing and we need 21st century skills. We need lifelong learners, and it means a huge system change to get there. And the last is the economy. I'd like to say the money doesn't make the world go round, but perhaps it makes it a lot easier. So we definitely have to make sure that the country is ready to compete globally, and that each individual worker is ready to have a job to compete at that level. So that allows us to identify those key areas, and we did that inside government, but the next task is to go around and identify who is brilliant in this nation, who has great ideas, and that's what we're going to showcase today. It's not about one person having all the ideas. It's not about one party having a platform that says this is the only way to think. it's about recognizing who has done something that works, that we can connect and repeat. I like to say it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's about connecting the dots. So as I go around the country, I'll be interviewing people, I'll be talking with people, I will be presenting with people, I'll be whiteboarding with people. This is about problem solving, this is about connecting, this is about making true change. But a lot of people say, well, that's all great, JJ, but are you running for president? Because I'm missing this part of it. Well, this is the execution part, right? Once you have that plan, when we get back in November, we will have a plan that we didn't write, but that we curated, right? It will be our plan. But somebody's got to execute it. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, I believe in readiness. So in this case, I practice what I preach, and that means that we have to go ahead and file with the FEC. We have to talk about running for president. We have to recognize that if you can execute this plan at the top in the power position, well, I'll guarantee you we will get it all done. But that doesn't mean that's the only option. There's that space of influence in the cabinet and all those 4,000 appointee positions as well. And if nothing else, there is always the point of inspiration. Connecting people across the country and talking to people and creating that buzz and making sure that every voice is heard, that is changing the system right then and there. And that makes a difference. So this is my promise to everybody here and everybody online. We are going to be successful. What I don't know for certain is at what level we will be successful. And that is what we will have to find out as we progress. Oftentimes people who are in a situation like me where you don't know my name and I don't necessarily have a ton of money, well, they think, well, how would you ever do this? Because there's so much to learn. But what I have to learn isn't about government. It isn't about the job. What I have to learn is how to run a campaign and raise money. Interestingly enough, neither of these things are required once you get into office. So that's not the part I have to learn. I often say, I could walk into the Oval Office today and I wouldn't skip a beat. And you know why? It's not because I'm amazing. It's because I did my homework and I went and found amazing people throughout the executive branch. And when you connect those folks, the power is amazing. And so, now that we know what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, and what our goal is, let's get started by showing how we do that right here in our own community. People say, all politics is local. True, but it also scales to the national level. And I have always been keen on saying, we work at the local level immediately, we connect to the state level for that 2 to 5 years out, and we work at the national level, making sure that we have the right vision 20 years out and are working in those spaces. So I've invited a number of folks here today, and I will tell you they fit into 3 categories. We have our leadership in politics, our political leaders. We have our activists and community leaders, and we have our thought leaders. I learned 3 days out of government. I called my team, I said, I'm not a politician, and I'm not an activist. And they said, well, we knew that. We were waiting for you to figure that out. I said, but we need our politicians because they are willing to fight for those laws, and when they don't work out, keep fighting to fix them. And we need our activists because they give a voice to people who aren't being heard. But there is a third space, and that's the space I fit into, the problem solvers. We need all 3 of these groups to work together. The only problem with the problem solver is they don't have a name usually. We work in the shadows. So this is going to be a new experience coming out of those shadows and trying to connect. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have each of our individuals speak. We'll start with our political leaders, and they will get up here, they'll share who they are, who they represent, what their goals are of their program, and how they connect to the community. My hope for all of you is that you start to see not one single speaker, but that you see a community of speakers. The message here is when we work together, the impact is multiplied, right? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So we'll start with Ben. Come on up. Do you have the mic? Here we go.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate it. My name is Ben Jenkins. I am the Vice Chair of the Seminole County Democratic Party. Our goal and our job is to get Democrats elected on the state, local, and federal level. And that's not just because we believe that the letter D is better than the letter R, or the letter blue is better than the color red. It's because we believe that we are better when we come together, that we have big problems both on the local level, on the state level, and the federal level, and we are able to come up with solutions in a much better way but we are coming together as a team and uniting to solve those problems. We believe that all men are created equal.
And women.
And women. I forgive you. Men. English is a terrible language because it has no neutral person. I apologize for that. Anyway, that all people are created equal, and they are endowed with certain inalienable rights. We believe that that liberty and justice is for all people. We believe that the environment is critically important for our children and our grandchildren to be able to have a life in a world for there to be in. So we are like I said, the local Democratic Party in the Seminole County area. Our job is to activate and engage the Democratic voter base to promote and recruit candidates. If you are interested in running, there are 40 positions open in the Seminole County area, that everywhere from tax collector to Florida House to several judges as well. And if you're not interested in running, because running is really, really hard, JJ, as you're about to find out, you can help out by supporting other people who are running. You can go and knock on your neighbor's door. You can go and engage with your local community to tell people, hey, there's an election coming up. Here's some information about these local races, these state races that don't get a lot of Sunday evening or evening news. And so you can tell people, like, this is how your county commissioner has so much more effect on your life every day that you sit in traffic, or your state representative has so much more effect on your life than maybe your national or your federal person does. So it's so important for you to be involved in those policies as well as being involved in just the state level. So if you want to get some more information, we are located in the back. You can always go to semdems.com or just come out and find me and ask what I can do to join. Thank you.
We're going to hold applause so that we can keep it moving, but something I'd like to add that a lot of folks don't realize is they're naming Seminole County to decide the next presidency. Yes. They're saying we are the most purple county and the most purple state, and I just chuckled. I said, this is getting too weird at this point, right? So why not? All right, Marion, why don't you come on up? And the way I want to connect these is, so this is the Democrat Party, and they're looking for candidates. They're pulling people together. Marion represents the caucuses, which are connected, but not directly underneath. So tell us about what you do.
Okay, I have many, many hats, and I love doing all of them. One of my hats is I am the chair for the club and caucuses of the Florida State Democratic Party. Today, I don't want to have a label. I want to let you know that we're all Americans, and we're all in this together. So we have to reach across the aisle and talk to each other and create a dialogue. Now, with the club and caucuses, they're called special interest groups. We have the LGBTQ, we have the progressive, we have the Democratic Black Caucus, environmental, education. So you see, we're all out there. And of course, dear to my heart, the veterans, because I come from a long line of veterans who served this country. Just like Dr. JJ said, and I honor and believe in her concept, connecting all of the dots. Just think she's the center, the nucleus, and all these branches across the United States she's going to touch. So with that thought in mind, let's all pull together, work together, and bring the government back to the people. Thank you.
Very much. Great. Now we'll bring Neela out to speak to us about the Women's March and all the women and men being created equal.
Yes.
Good segue for that.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Neela Wilson. I'm with the Women's March of Central Florida, and I've been a part of that organization since 2017. We are about educating and activating, lifting up voices, speaking up and speaking out, and holding our representatives accountable to the people, and in particular to women and families and those issues that are affecting our communities most deeply across healthcare, the environment, across those things with immigration and race and social justice issues. We are focused on continuing to bring women to the forefront of leadership so that they can fill more offices. In the state of Florida, we had one of the largest numbers of women elected into offices this past election cycle. Whoop, whoop. And so we want to continue that momentum all the way up as we saw in Congress. And so it's about having diverse representation. A woman's place is at the table, and it's about having a voice that represents the needs of our communities. So we are found predominantly on Facebook under Women's March Central Florida, and we work to really rally the troops, so to speak, to get that energy that people have, maybe even frustration at different times, and channel it into productive, activated outcomes that can affect positive change. So you can find us there on Facebook, and you can also look us up through the womensmarchflorida.org website. And if you want to reach out, feel free to message me, Mila@womensmarchfl.org. But we look forward to having you engaged, and we continue to lift up those voices that often are not heard. So we propose to stand in the gap, and we ask that all of you stand in the gap for those who cannot be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. And,
and I love everything she said.
Thank you. We serve on the board together. Come on up, Lisa. This Saturday, I'll be missing it, but we'll be walking for women this weekend, and so there will be an event. So if anyone is interested, please do share. I know there's sometimes a fear that activism can be intense or overwhelming, but as you just saw, I mean, Neela is the coolest. She's former Air Force, and her speaking is incredibly eloquent and clear, and the way we work together is on that problem-solving space, and like she said, that space in between, and I've been truly inspired, so thank you. Lisa, we'll move to you. Hey, please share.
Hi, my name is Lisa Santoni Cromar. I come to you representing as the Vice President and Co-Director of Diaspora and Resistencia. Our mission is to organize and advocate for a just and equitable future for Puerto Rico. If you want to know what's happening in Puerto Rico, where things stand, how bad things are, where we're hoping to get things, and what you can do to help, please leave your information at my table. In addition to my work with Diaspora, I sit on the Women's March Florida Executive Board, the steering committee of 2 Puerto Rico nonprofits, County and State Disability and Affordable Housing Advisory Committees. The longer I work across these communities, the more clear it becomes that we are all fighting the same ugly, hateful things. Racism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, babies in cages, the consequentless murder of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, 4,645 dead Puerto Ricans, as well as the recent legislative assault on our body autonomy. It's all the same thing. So not long ago, I read a summary of an anthropological study on authoritarianism, taking into consideration events from ancient world history to the current situation in the U.S. The study determined that while there are often those who fight the rise of authoritarianism, sometimes in large numbers, there have never been enough to do more than slow the progress. So then how do we stop our continuing descent into windy days, into social, economic, and political hell? I say that the only way that we can become enough is to band together, that we acknowledge that we all want the same things, to be seen, to be heard, to love, and be loved. Pay equity, a living wage, affordable housing, disability rights, affordable, accessible health care, body autonomy for every last one of us. This is not just a woman's issue. The simple human right to dignity and respect. Until we all understand that my fight is your fight and that your fight is mine, we will never have the power necessary to change our world for the better. This is something that I think JJ understands, and that's why I'm here. So thank you, JJ, for this opportunity, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to add something. I mean, you love the energy. She's got more than I do, for sure. The reason I was talking with Lisa early on was because while I was in the inside, as soon as I heard about the hurricanes, I got on the phone, and I talked to FEMA, and I talked to the Coast Guard and said, what is going on? And for many of you, you may not realize our coasties are in Department of Homeland, not under Department of Defense. And that may seem like a small thing, but it's a very big thing when it comes to resources. And they told me, they said, we are so frustrated. We know what's happening, but we can't affect change because we are stuck still working with paper-based planning and communication. I said, are you kidding me? In DOD, we have these resources available at your fingertips, and they don't cost anything. They said, all we need is permission to work with DOD. Wow, I mean, think about that for a minute. All they needed was permission. They didn't need money. They didn't need taxpayers. They didn't need anything from Congress. They just needed somebody in an appointee position to say, yes, you can share. That's when it becomes real, and that's when these discussions matter so very much. So we're going to pass it to this side, where we're going to get into some of the community leaders and thought leaders. These are individuals who are nonpartisan, who are trying to bring the community together. Rob and I started a program together called Unify USA. I'm going to pass it off to you to go ahead and share with us.
Thank you, Jacob. So I'm Robert Amos. I am the Executive Director of Unify USA, and we're a nonpartisan nonprofit. As JJ mentioned, we came up with this idea about a year ago, and we were really looking at a lot of what Lisa Cromar was mentioning, which is authoritarianism is an inevitable flow from democracy to, if you wish, fascism. Our challenge is that there are specific elements that die in a democracy that if we don't keep alive, we don't have protection from authoritarianism. Those are what I call our democratic norms. Unify USA is designed to bring us back together and promote those healthy democratic norms so that we can become a self-governing body again. Those norms are really simple. They're civility, citizenship, and community. Really, when we talk about citizenship, we're talking about an understanding of a shared responsibility for our future, for our children's future, and our grandchildren's future. When we talk about civility, we're talking about respecting other people, their humanity, just as Lisa was mentioning. And when we talk about community, we're talking about a cherishing and an understanding of our diversity. Those three things seem so simple, but they are so integral into every interaction we have with each other, with our families, with our neighbors, with our communities, within our schools, within our political structures, all of those things. It's integral. So Unify USA is going out on this 50-state tour. We're going to be going in and listening. We're going to do service projects all over the United States. And we're going to be promoting what I call the Unify USA Pledge, which is a very simple pledge that we can all sign on to. That pledge is to reinforce these three major norms and do it with action statements. So as we go forward, I'm going to invite all of you to come join me on that Unify USA Pledge, and then invite you to invite all of your friends to do so too. Because together, if we get to be millions of people all signed on to the same action statements, to support the same reasons for being and reasons to work together, we'll make a difference, and we will start to walk back that movement towards authoritarianism that's been happening in my lifetime. So, I think
I'm going to add to this. What we're able to do, go ahead and pass it. What we're able to do then is be a 1-2 punch, right? I'll be looking at those ideas and those communities that are working, and Rob will be ensuring that he's getting those human stories and setting up the volunteer program, so we're bringing it all together. So as you watch us walk around the country, this is what you'll see. Come on up.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Hain, and I am the Community Director of Florida for Good, and I'm here with Jennifer, the Executive Director of Florida for Good. And we're excited to be here to support Unify USA and Team JJ because we feel we share a similar vision. We love the goal of them going out and trying to find the most innovative ideas and the most inspirational leaders across the nation. Florida for Good is doing something similar. We're trying to find the most innovative business leaders who believe in using for-profit business as a force for good. We see for-profit business as the means to change the way the world works. And we're looking for other leaders and businesses who want to collaborate with us and network with us. We promote, recognize, act as a resource for and collaborate with all kinds of sustainable businesses. Our emphasis is on B Corp certified businesses. And what B Corp certification is a third-party rigorous evaluation of your business to see how you're treating your employees, how you're treating your community, what your governance structure is like, and how you're treating the planet. And if you pass all of these markers, you become B Corp certified. And what this does is allows people to differentiate your business from businesses that are just claiming to that are greenwashing or claiming to be sustainable but really aren't. It also allows you to market your mission and protect your mission through legislation, which is called a benefit corporation. So we're looking to create a very strong movement here in Florida to gather like-minded businesses and be at the forefront of this movement nationally. B Corp certification is actually global, but it's actually more popular in other countries, and so we're trying to bring more recognition here in the U.S., and we're hoping by forming Florida for Good will inspire other states to create a more durable and inclusive society for all people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think what's so great about this is the emphasis. This is for-profit businesses. So this is not just about trying to share everything and all of that. This is about making sure that those for-profit businesses are operating in a way that is sustainable and regenerative, which is awesome.
Can I say one more thing on that? So for-profit business that take into consideration the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit, actually outperform businesses that do not. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence for this, but there's also research study after research study that proves it. You have studies from Harvard Business School, Deloitte, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs that all attest to this. And the business leaders that are going to be the rock stars of the 21st century will be operating around people, planet, and profit.
I like that, rock stars of the 21st century. Let's pass it to Justin. Come on up.
All right, everyone, good afternoon, or I guess good evening at this point.
Yes.
I'm Justin Miller, as JJ, or Dr. JJ said. I am here on behalf of my LLC, my research firm, the Policy Research Institute of Orlando. Everything that JJ said earlier is essentially what we're all about. I've got 20 years in the Navy, and when I retired from the Navy, I worked in the intelligence community. One of the things I observed is when you go to solve a problem, you don't ask people who they married, what's under the uniform, what state they're from, what political party they're from. It is, what is the problem on the table, what are the resources we have to get it fixed, and who's got the best ideas to get it done. And so when you start a think tank, that is your starting point, right?
Yep.
When you use military jargon, your SP. That's what Policy Research Institute of Orlando is for Orlando. You go to DC, you sit outside DC, you see Rand Corporation, you see Brookings, you see some of the other side things, you see some, what I refer to as paper mills, think tanks, American Enterprise Institute and whatnot, where everyone's got a slant, but no one's looking at what happens in people's daily lives. So, Orlando, for instance. I built Orlando Policy Research Institute, or the Policy Research Institute of Orlando, so that we could take challenges and opportunities that we have here in our community and then expand out. Brookings Institution described Orlando, Florida as a mid-sized global city. And so she talked about globalism earlier. Some folks in here, not here, but in the community don't understand what that means. And so you're trying to solve problems that concern jobs, mass migrations, global pandemics of disease, economics, education. All those things start locally. So that's where we built Policy Research Institute of Orlando. We're going to connect all those dots locally and then feed them up, because states theoretically are a test bed for good ideas. So we're going to collect information, solve problems locally, share them with the nation, and maybe even share them with some international community through organizations like the UN and their Global Development Program.
And this is how we roll up from the community to the state, to the national and international level. A lot of people don't know $12 billion in defense dollars alone come to the I-4 corridor. Wow, that is a lot of money. And the way that information rolls up to DC is through Team Orlando and the modeling and simulation that we do here, which is not just the best in the country, it's the best in the world. And when I'm overseas and someone wants to hear about our defense program, they are often asking about Orlando, specifically because we are the innovators, we are the team players, we have all military branches supported here and represented, and that matters because it is exactly as Justin said, it's our test bed. and that's how we move forward. Thank you so much. We're moving on. Come on up, Chris.
My name is Chris Walcott. I'm JJ's husband. And I undertook a project about 3 years ago. It was a scientific study of the budding politician in its native habitat. I've got a fantastic data set, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to share it. For the past 20 years, I've worked in technology and cybersecurity in critical infrastructure, predominantly focused in energy, water, wastewater, oil, gas, and mining. That's been my focus. About 5 years ago, my stepdaughter, JJ's daughter, Monica, who's in the back there, became involved in the Sea Cadets, particularly Centurion Battalion that meets here at the American Legion Hall. And they had undertaken an endeavor to start up a Cyber Patriot team. Now, Cyber Patriot is the national middle school and high school cyber defense competition. As of this year, there are about 30,000 kids that participate in this program, and it is the best program that exists to try to train young minds in the cyber skills that we need for the future of this country. Right now, there are about 1 million open jobs in the cyber realm in the US. Most of them are six-figure jobs. Within the next couple of years, that figure is expected to go north of 5 million jobs. And Cyber Patriot is honestly the best chance that we have of filling that gap. Not only have we been successful here in Centurion Battalion, but in 2016, we won the All-Service Division National Championship. We were the best team in the country out of about 1,800 teams that year in the All-Service Division. Our trophy's in the back there, as is one of the placards from the competition. And if you are interested in this, if you have children or if you'd like to support it, if you work in the community, we need coaches and we need mentors. The coaches can be anyone. You don't have to have a cyber background. The mentors are those of us who've worked in this industry and want to give something back by teaching and training the workforce of the future in cyber education.
And Chris, just to make this a little bit global, when did China start training similarly their students?
In the early 1980s, they shuttered the Lanshan Vocational School.
And when did we start?
Cyber Patriot is 6 months older than US Cyber Command, 2009.
To put that in perspective for just a minute, wow, right? Wow. And when you go to these competitions, there's nobody under 2 stars present, because that's how serious it is in military right now, that we need to be looking at our young people and ensuring they are able to be cyber defenders. So this is a very important program. And as we progress around the country, this will be our hallmark space that we talk about. So we're excited to do that. All right, go ahead and pass it on. Doug, come on up.
Well, good evening. Thank you, JJ.
My pleasure.
My name is Doug Evans, and I'm going to segue a little bit off of what Chris mentioned about. I'm the commanding officer of Centurion Battalion here, and have been probably his biggest advocate and evangelist for the program that JJ and Chris were talking about. I've watched these teams develop, and I've watched these young men and women throw themselves into this very, very difficult, complex situation and come out, and I feel very, very encouraged about what we're producing to help us stand up against this, because it's not the war that's going to come, it's the war that's here right now. Well, how do you know all that? Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I'm pretty much a career military and law enforcement person myself. Started my career at 17 years old, enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, was in for 6 years, got out, put my way through college as a police officer in Louisville, Kentucky for almost 8 years. Did everything from undercover narcotics investigation to underwater search and recovery in the Ohio River, SWAT team, tactical, high-risk warrants. I then got hired by the FBI and spent 21 years as an FBI special agent here in Central Florida. During that time, I worked on some of the most sensitive cases in the United States. I worked on national security cases of international terrorism, espionage, counterintelligence against our main threat countries. That being said, JJ asked me to speak for a few minutes this afternoon, and I was like, what do you want me to talk about? She said, school safety. I said, okay. How much time do I have? 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, school safety, 3 to 5 minutes. I think I could explain quantum mechanics better in 3 to 5 minutes than we can get into school safety today. But that being said, let me try and bring this together.
This is how we get the best knowledge and apply it to all areas, right? This is, I mean, you are showcasing exactly what it is that we want to be able to do. Because this is a hot topic right now, and you're coming from an educated perspective. So what are 2 things that we can all learn from your experience?
Well, there's a couple of things. I'm not sure if I can quantify them in 2, but I'll try, okay? Anytime as an investigator, or if I have a complicated case, complicated problem, just like the gentleman here from the Orlando think tank, the former Navy officer. When you have a problem to solve, you ask questions. And when you don't have all the answers, you continue to ask more and more questions. So when it comes to school safety, I challenge everybody here to ask some more questions. Because what we hear after there's a mass shooting or there's a shooting event is one or two items, people hang their hat on, all the politicians get on the bandwagon, and then it comes to a grinding halt within 6 to 7 days. Okay? We're not asking the best questions sometimes. So ask better questions. It's a multi-dimensional problem. The problems we have are very, very serious. Okay? They have to do with drug addiction problems in our schools and our young people. It has to do with our obsession with violence in our young people. It has to do with mental health issues that need to be addressed. And it goes on and on and on. It's not a single issue problem. So I encourage you, when you see these things happening, dig a little deeper, find out what's really, really, really going on in our society. And that being said, that's why Chris and I pour ourselves into these young people to try and put back into these young folks, young men and women from the age of 11 to 18, that concept of honor, courage, and commitment that is so absent in our society today. And we try and make them real words, not just words of conversation, that they really mean something. They take an oath to enlist with us. They have to stick with us for at least a year. What's an oath mean? So we try and reiterate what these important concepts for our society are, and invest that for tomorrow, and I think that's the only way that we push ourselves forward. So,
yeah, I will say that I will promote what you are saying, because my daughter's gone through the program. She was the chief petty officer here locally. She's been for maybe 6-7 years, but they get search and rescue training. They go out and do boot camp. They go out and act as officers in younger folks' boot camps. They do cyber trainings. I mean, the experience she's gotten is truly unbelievable. And I will add to the school concerns as well. I've borrowed from military the concept that we say a lot of times, which is left of bang. It means you don't just look at when someone pulled the trigger, you look at the time frame prior to that and ask more questions. What happened? Why? What could we have done, whether it's suicide or it's a mass shooting? What could we have done differently to ensure that event didn't occur? And that is the type of thing we do in the executive branch. We work on these programs, and it's not about laws in the executive branch. In the executive branch, we do come up with those extra pieces. So
everybody says the same thing after a mass shooting, or whether it's a critical incident. Everybody knew that was the guy or the girl who was going to go do that, right? Well, the next question should be then, well, what did you do about it? You know, did you see something? Did you say something? Did you make those critical decisions that could have made a meaningful intervention?
Yes, agreed. Thank you so much. Pass it.
Very good. Thanks.
And before we have our last speaker, this gentleman is someone that I met a little while ago now. We've done a few things together. The way that we are going to format this tour is that each month we're going to focus on one of those 5 topics that I mentioned. At the very beginning, we're going to have a speaker that says, hey, this is how we're going to approach this topic. This is how we're going to develop programs. This is what we're going to be looking for great ideas. And then at the end of that month, we're going to have a race. So if you haven't checked out our booth over there, you can see the races that we're going to be running. And during those races, it's going to be a positive celebration of all the information that we found. And I'll be announcing and sharing almost like a podcast. Hey, here's what we learned. Here's what we're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in the location I'm running. It's a virtual event as well. So you can be anywhere in the country. And in this case, starting the first month, is a focus on the environment. So we're going to have Jeff share with us. Is it me? Sorry. There we go. We're going to have Jeff start us off to discuss the environment, and particularly about permaculture. If you've not heard of permaculture, you're in for a treat. The reason I've chosen this to focus on is because permaculture is not just one idea. It is a concept and approach to the environment, and it's about regeneration. It's not afraid to talk about profit. It's not afraid to talk about abundance. And what I want to be able to do is use this as an organizing structure for all the folks that we meet along the way. And so with that, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Wow, a lot of great speakers tonight. And I can see how there's all diverse elements that are here that will all come together. I'm the director of Orlando Permaculture, and I'm also an educator for over a decade teaching middle school students. I teach International Connections Academy, so I'm teaching students online, virtually all over the world. And I've noticed that there's a lot of things that are missing from our education system. And there's so much that we need to teach our children as well as people in the community about a lot of the essential things that we need. And we focus a lot on food and energy and water, and also how do we integrate community? How do we get more connected not only to nature but to one another? There's such a deficit that we have everywhere right now. We have an education system where people end up broke and without a job, and we're supposed to be giving them a job. They're working jobs just to make money to pay off their debt. We have medicine that's making us sick. We have food that's leaving us malnourished. We have even some police that are hurting us rather than protecting some of us. So we need to rethink what our solutions are, because we're finding that we're going after these solutions and they're leaving us more deprived and having less than we did before. So we have a system right now that's designed scarcity. It's degenerative. We have planned obsolescence that's causing our gadgets and our clothes, trendy. The music is good for a few weeks and then we need something else. We are programmed to consume and to throw away. And our landfills are a testament to that. Our elderly and the homeless are a testament to that waste product, these outputs that are not being used. And in permaculture, we talk about integration and valuing the marginal. We talk about planning and designing. It's a design science, designing for abundance over scarcity, regeneration over degeneration. So, and one of the emphasis is really reconnecting to nature, because nature has many of the solutions, and so we look at nature. Permaculture means permanent culture. We talk about permanent, we talk about resilience, regeneration, and readiness. And if we want to be a ready nation, we have to start right at the root of the problems. A lot of the questions that we're asking right now, we're developing solutions for those questions. We're asking a lot of the wrong questions. We need to figure out what questions to ask and develop the right solutions. So with Orlando Permaculture, we're educating the community about how to meet our essential needs, and a lot of times, a lot of the needs that the products that we're buying to meet those needs are leaving us with deficits. So we're focusing on solutions, things that we feel are the right solutions, and educating the community about them. We are largely an educational group. We're a nonprofit here in Orlando, and we're trying to create more resilient, permanent communities. So we have education classes that we do. We have little mini sessions, and we educate people about everything, how to cook and grow food, and just how to interact better with one another. You are an ecosystem, okay? You have more microbes in your body than human cells, and your human cells have microbe ancestors. You are yeast, fungi, bacteria. Well, I shouldn't start with yeast, right? Bacteria, even beneficial viruses. Many of them are beneficial, and they're all working together. Then we look in nature, and we see that it doesn't need fertilizer or extra irrigation or pesticides or herbicides. So we're trying to figure out and look at how everything is working together, how all those different elements are working together for abundance. And so when I look at the people today, and we're talking about many different solutions on how to come together and defending our country against cybersecurity, what about against drought? What about depleted soil? 40 to 50 of our most successful civilizations that have collapsed were because of their soil depleted, and wars over land and all that kind of stuff. So we need to look at what are the problems? If we have healthy soil, we have healthy plants, we have healthy humans, we have a healthy ecosystem. There's a lot of environmental groups that are out there that are not successful because I think a lot of times they're focusing just on that separate environment. We seem like we're separate from the environment, and so we don't value it as much. But when you start to learn about how, if you take care of the ecosystem, it makes healthy plants, makes healthy you, and when you're growing things, you can bring people together. Now let's have some school systems where you have a school garden, and maybe you have people who are elderly, who are retired, and they come in and they help. Let's bring everyone together and let's have this integrated approach. So I think let's focus on that, and as educating, how can your maybe waste products or outputs of one system be inputs for another? How can we integrate politics with agriculture, with the education system, and defense? Let's think about how we can put everything together, because in nature, things are not separate. It's not a reductionist approach, all right? So our world is a complex, interconnected, ecological, sociological, psychological, economic system, and we got to bring it all together.
Very good. On this one, I couldn't possibly agree more. This ecosystem concept is what I like to say is working smarter, not harder. And that is how we make change in government. Thank you so much, Jeff. If you might, please give a round of applause to all of our speakers today. And I hope you got the meta message, which is that we need individuals that are speaking for others and that are bringing people to the table that can make an influence in Congress, in the state, and in other places. And we need people who are thinking outside the box for solutions and building people up. And when we bring all that together, that's when we make true change. Last point to make is please come over, have a treat, and sign the bus. That is something I ask of each of you. And if you are so generous and willing to go to teamjjusa.com, we would love for you to give $1. You do have to fill out your name and your phone number because it is a donation. But the reason we're collecting dollars is because they count number of contributions, not so much how much the contributions are. However, if you have more money than $1, we would certainly promise. Truly, I promise that we will spend every penny very, very wisely, and that we will do a lot of good with it. So thank you so very, very much for coming out today, and I will see you over there for pictures and signings.